it's certainly part of the book of Psalms. It's like, but like Psalm 88 probably would be the saddest psalm that I know about. You have other psalms that have some of that similar spirit, but then they kind of end with something more uplifting and optimistic. But Psalm 88 has that sadness. But really, you think about 150 psalms in in over 95% of the psalms are uplifting, about praising and this beautiful relationship and in connection with God. And Psalm 88 happens to be a minority in the mix. So anyway, if a lot of my videos, or even the videos that people see and talk to me about in person and are sharing about, when most of those are sad, and really most of my days aren't sad. There are pieces of my days that are sad. There's times in my life that are down, but for the most part, there's a lot of good. And sometimes it can be an inaccurate depiction of what's actually happening. So I think as I've stepped away for a little bit from streaming, and it's reminded me of how precious and valuable hope is. And so with that in mind, my ambition is to be able to do more to stir up hope and to highlight hope and to make hope real. And in the faith space, one of the most beautiful parts of when I'm processing what is it that the faith people actually have, like what is it that people of faith or people of the Christian faith, what is it that they offer that's unique? What is it that we offer as a Christian community that's saying there's certain things we may not, that certain pockets of the Christian community may not have, but we certainly have this. And I came to peace that transcends understanding, came to inexpressible, glorious joy. I came to divine wisdom that transcends culture. And but that's, even if we were talking about peace for a little bit, and one of the passages you can look at for peace is Philippians chapter 4, and it describes this calling, this like to rejoice in the Lord always, always. And it's because God's always good. It's always in season to praise and rejoice and celebrate who God is, and I've written stuff, on the alphabet, that he's my anchor and my author, my banner, my beacon, my companion and my creator, my delight and my desire. He's worthy of, you could go through the alphabet and praising and uplifting and exalting him and about who he is, what he's done. And for me, it's about this year in 2023, I'm celebrating, next month I'm celebrating 20 years in my faith journey. And it's 20 years of believing that that I've been redeemed and my values been restored, that my sins have been forgiven. It's I'm 37 now. I started when I was 17, and as a 17-year-old kid, I heard the message about Jesus and the idea that I could walk around with a clean start, with a fresh beginning, that all of my sins would be forgiven, past, present, and future. I know I wanted that at 17. And the beautiful thing is believing it on an ongoing basis from then until now, and then being able to help other people to have that too. So I rejoice in God, in the Lord, who has given me that privilege of being able to walk for these last 19 years, believing that any way that I've come up short in my thoughts, or in my words or in my actions or in my responses, any way that I've come up short, that God already's covered me, that I'm already good. And I don't know about you and how you process mistakes from your past, but sometimes for me, it's like a movie where the scene is playing again, and I kind of have to shake myself out of it. I'm like, ah, ah, and I gotta I kind of gotta um, move it. Like it's kind of, it can be. I think I can easily overwhelm myself by thinking about what I could have done, what I would have done now had I had the knowledge or had I had the character, and I can go down this trail um, of regret and even embarrassment lived all over again because I didn't say this, or I didn't say it this way, or I didn't say it with this purpose in mind. So, um, knowing that I'm forgiven, knowing that I'm restored and that I'm redeemed is something that nourishes me to always rejoice in God. And so if you're somebody who's, I know a number of people who tune into to me and discuss even some of my videos, that they're already believers, they're already Christians. So you have that same forgiveness. And for those of people who are connected with me, I got people who are not of the Christian faith or not of any faith. Then when I'm talking about rejoicing in the Lord, for forgiveness of any of my shortcomings, then God holds that same opportunity out for you when you're in a relationship with Jesus. So rejoice in the Lord always. I'll say it again, rejoice. And then this concept of, if you skip down to verse 6, I'm not speaking on notes here, but you take it back down to verse 6 of that chapter. It says, do not be anxious about anything. And that's a few short words. Do not be anxious about anything. 6 words. But I think they carry a whole lot of weight. Do not be anxious about anything. Any one thing. Do not be anxious. Don't worry. Don't stress about anything. Don't worry about anything. But what about my bills, or what about my debt, or what about what this person said to me? Do not be anxious about anything. But what about my spouse and what she said or he did? Do not be anxious. Don't stress about anything. But what about what that person did and what they're suspected of doing, and what about those? What about this situation at work? What about I feel forgotten and overlooked? Do not be anxious about anything. Don't worry about anything. But what about my mental health? What about the challenges there? What about the challenges with my physical health? What about my shortcomings? What about, my muscles aren't big enough? What if my stomach isn't small enough? What if my face isn't smooth enough? And you could go down the line of the physical appearance. Do not be anxious about anything. Don't worry about anything. Don't stress about anything. But in everything, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. So don't be anxious about anything. But in everything, with prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your request to God. So in everything, it's about in every situation, in every circumstance, in every season, every month, every day, with thanksgiving, present your request to God. There's this element of thanking God for what he's done, what he's given, for the blessing that's already present. And if you took that word thank and you studied it throughout the Bible, you'd see only a few categories. You don't have like 25 categories of thanksgiving. Really, you see 4, 5, 6 categories. You certainly see thanksgiving for God's nature. Give thanks to the Lord for He is good. Give thanks to the Lord for He is faithful. For His love endures forever. So that's certainly what thanksgiving was being thought of when Paul wrote the words. And you can't also help but look at Paul's words as he wrote his letters to the people. He was often thanking God and expressing his thanks to God for the people. So with thanksgiving, well, what categories can you thank God for? I put them into the categories under the letter P, and it's people. It's the personality of God. That's the loving nature of Him, the faithful nature of Him, the good nature of Him. You could say the power, the powers that you have, like the abilities. Like I have the power to breathe. I have the power to walk or to speak or to remember scriptures or whatever your powers are. The powers that the abilities that you have. You do see Him, Jesus, give thanks for the bread and the fish. He gave thanks breaking the bread. So like there's an element of giving thanks for sustenance, for being provided for. Maybe the broad category there is possessions. I find myself thanking God for the home that I live in, for the bed that I sleep on, for the cover that warms me, for the water system, for the machines that are all around our house, the washing machines and the dishwasher, the air conditioner with this 100-degree heat in San Antonio, and this going through those things. So again, it's do not be anxious. Do not worry. Do not stress about anything. But in everything, with prayer and petition, with Thanksgiving, present your requests. So with Thanksgiving, so we went through the Thanksgiving part. And then it's, what do you want God to do? Knowing what He's capable of. Knowing what He has done. Created the heavens and the earth. That He's sovereign over illness. He's sovereign over blindness. He's sovereign over the sun and the stars. Knowing that He has the power, what requests are you going to lay before Him? Often when I'm coaching people, we talk through the 14 areas of life, and you think through like, okay, well, what do I want God to do? And it says, present your requests to God. The beautiful thing about it is there's so many things that prayers God has answered and things God has done that you didn't pray for. And sometimes when I'm speaking in front of a group, I'll ask them, how many of you, let's say I'm sitting in front of a group that's sitting down, and I'll say, how many of you asked God to bless you with a chair to sit on tomorrow? It's something pretty simple. But many people didn't, but God hooked them up anyway. How many of the people asked God for clothes to wear the very next day? And it's pretty normal that many of them didn't ask for that prayer, make that request, but God hooked them up anyway. How many of you asked God, and sometimes this answer changes, whether it's transportation or even the air condition. I didn't ask. I didn't pray yesterday for the air condition today. Now, had my air conditioner broke yesterday, I surely would be calling my buddy Francisco with Air Integrity or somebody and saying my prayers for God to, restore the air conditioning system for sure. 100%. 100%. But it says part of this plan for peace is, with thanksgiving, presents your requests to God. So, meaning, it's okay to make your requests. James chapter 4 tells us that there were some people they didn't have because they didn't ask God. I never want to be that guy. I want to be the guy that God, I show up, when it's my time to go to heaven and I'm up there connecting with God and I want him to tell me, yeah, son, you asked for everything and beyond. You didn't hold back any requests. And I feel like I'm going to tell God, yeah, I read James chapter 4 and it says, you do not have because you do not ask God. I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be the guy who, hey, God could have done more for and more with, but he was waiting for my request. There are certain things I think God throws in as freebies, like I mentioned the air condition or the chair you're sitting on, or some of you didn't pray for the transportation to work today. Those are freebies. Other things, the other blessings, though, are conditional based on you actually asking. Requests with thanksgiving. Present your requests to God. So anything you could think of to be thankful for. Anything you want God to do. Again, when we're talking about do not be anxious about anything. Do not worry about anything. Do not have stress about anything. Like, do not get overwhelmed about anything, right? So all those concepts. And it's connected with thanksgiving. It's forcing your mind to think about all that God has already done, that he's already doing. It does remind you of his faithfulness and all the ways he's been taking care of you and taking care of people around you. And then it's the request. They move me into this direction of focusing on what I want this sovereign God to do, what I want him who has all the power, who has all the knowledge, who has all the might, who has all the resources. What do I want him to do? And then once I've done that, when I've done Thanksgiving, there's, credible scientific evidence that just the practice of Thanksgiving is so beneficial and helpful to your well-being and to your mental health. And requests that, and I've laid it before the God of the universe, and then I'm gonna trust that God has my back, that God is for me. God has your back, that God is for you. And if he says no, I'm going to not even say probably. I'm going to say it's for a good reason. It's for a good reason. So, as we're processing all of this, one of the most beautiful things about hope, the hope in Jesus, the hope in God, is he holds out to us peace. Yet when I study out peace, it seems to be conditional. Because that text goes on after presenting your request to God. It goes on to say, and the peace of God, which transcends all understanding. It's like this idea that this peace that doesn't even make sense will guard your heart and mind in Christ Jesus. But then it keeps on going. It says to think about what is true, noble, right, lovely, admirable, excellent, praiseworthy. missed one of them, maybe purity. Or maybe I missed one, but there's 8 different descriptions of what we are to set our thoughts on. It's so easy to be focused on the opposite of those things. Whatever's true, you could be thinking about whatever's false or whatever might be true. No, no, no. It's not not what might be true, not what's false. It's what is true. What is true. That's why whenever I'm hearing a secondhand story from somebody else, I think I'm not meant to think so much about what somebody said, somebody else did, or what somebody else happened. But I am called to think about what is true. So, where I might not spend a whole lot of time mentally, or it's best to not spend a whole lot of time mentally thinking about this potential truth, but what is true? And maybe the person is distressed or going through some things, and maybe what's true is what they're thinking or what they're feeling. That what they're feeling could be true. Again, their real thoughts can be true, and I can help somebody there. But you go down the list: what's noble, right, pure, lovely, admirable, excellent, praiseworthy. These are the things that our designer, our creator, wants us to think about, and I think it's put there around the concepts of peace for a purpose, because the quality of our thoughts leads to the quality of our peace. Quality of our thoughts leads to the quality of our peace. You keep going even to the next verse. It talks about whatever Paul's saying, like whatever you've seen in me or received in me, learn from me, put it into practice. And the God of peace will be with you. So that's interesting. I think it's interesting. So he ties peace back in, but he says there's an element of putting into practice good, godly principles. This proactive faith, this active faith that's not just sitting around with nothingness, but there's something about being proactive with your faith that helps you, that helps you to be in tune with this peace that transcends all understanding. It's active, not inactive. It's proactive, not passive. It's assertive. You're doing something purposefully and intentionally to live out good, godly principles in your life, and that leads to peace. Finally, again, you go in a little bit further in that passage, and you find out that he's talking about contentment, that he learned the secret of being content, whatever the circumstances. That's the beautiful thing. This peace that seems to be connected with contentment. It could be when you have a whole lot. It can be when you have very little. But it's a contentment, a satisfaction with God, with a recognition of what he's done, what he's doing, and what he will do. But that's a beautiful thing. So anyway, I say all that because maybe I'll end with this story. I mean, my brother and one of my brothers and one of my cousins, we were just kind of messaging back and forth, and we were talking about different movies that were like tear jerkers, and other movies that I described one movie as disturbing, and one of my cousins, my cousin asked, "Well, hey, why do you find that movie disturbing?" The movie had somewhat of a happy ending, but what I told him in the message as I was explaining kind of the movie and why I found it disturbing, and it wasn't because it was like a horror movie, but it was more because so many bad things happened in the movie that the few good things weren't enough to kind of get me in equilibrium, to get me balanced out. I was so saddened by the movie. Let's say this is like, a balanced state, maybe here, right here. And then I was so far down in the movie. I was realizing in the movie there was nothing really as the time was, winding down on the movie, there wasn't going to be enough good that could happen to be able to get me close, maybe even below equal balance, not even not even equal, surely not above. But what I ultimately explained to him was that there was just too many bad things happening in the movie to the main character for me to think that he could ever get to a point of redemption, right? And I bring that up because I want to be somebody who's bringing a variety of good news. The scriptures talk about that. It's refreshing, uplifting, that good news from a distant land. It's healing. It's helpful. So I want to be somebody that's a change that I'm making as I've reflected. Like, has too much of my content been a little bit sad or been a little bit dark? My decision is to do a little bit more, to bring more light, to bring more hope, and more goodness, more good news, and in not just the despair like a Psalm 88. What about the other 149 Psalms that have something good to say about the power of God and the beauty of God and the dependence on God? That's what I'm working on, thinking about hope and how I can help inspire more hope, how I can nourish people with more hope. Anyway, that's all I got for this one. So we'll see you on the next one. Appreciate you guys. Peace.